Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to start this conversation with you. My name is Lauren, and once again, for the purposes of this conversation, I serve as a project manager with Equitable Development Action. And part of what we are here to do is kind of talk to you if you are a 245D provider, if you are an aspiring 245D provider, or if you are somebody who is actively working in the field. We're here to share a little bit of tidbit and nuggets of wisdom, hopefully that will help you in sustaining your business, or maybe it's opening for some of you. Last week, we started talking a little bit about HR strategies for recruiting and retaining DSPs. What we largely focused on last week was trying to humanize the role of DSPs, right? And trying to sort of bridge the gap between how you as a prospective employer really need to be considerate or thinking about and including what this DSP as a person, the person filling the role really brings, and how you can amplify and or show value. So for today's purpose, I really want to talk a little bit, just briefly talk about from an HR standpoint, the technical side of things, right? The type of forms that you will need. What do we mean when we're saying retention strategies, recruitment and retention strategies? So if you are planning to hire a DSP, what are the things that you need to do? So for this conversation, think of it maybe as like a little checklist of some of the things you want to make sure that you have to ensure that you have a smooth process of both recruiting and retaining those DSPs, right? Um, very first up, of course, you want to make sure that you are actually, before I forget, we want to give a shout out to DHS. This project is made possible through a one-time legislative appropriation that is, of course, rolled out through DHS. But we want to make sure that we acknowledge that this work would not have been possible without the funding that we did get to be able to reach the providers and industry partners as well. Wanted to make sure that we don't leave that out. So jumping right into it. The first thing that you would need, of course, is your job description, right? Um, the job or the role of a DSP, and in some organizations, I think it's called an HHA. But you want to make sure, regardless of what that job looks like relative to the other roles in the organization, you want to make sure that there's a job description, right? There are a lot of times where we might end up seeing, or we even know that word of mouth is how people end up finding these jobs. Be that as it may, it does not negate the necessity for having a job description. So you want to have this job description, and you want to ensure that it is clear, it is concise, and also it only details the things that you need someone to be able to see upon reading, looking for a job, right? Um, Now, of course, within the crafting of this job description, you want to ensure that you are working with HR personnel, or maybe you are utilizing some type of software system that is curating these job descriptions for you, or AI. Whatever your choice, your preference, or whatever it is that you are utilizing, you absolutely want to ensure that you are paying attention to state and federal guidelines pertaining to job descriptions, pertaining to the hiring process, right? Once we have that job description out, ensure that you actually have an application form that is also ready, right? Um, and so you, generally speaking, in the era of technology, you're going to go hand in hand. Your job description, you put it up, excuse me, you might put up your job description on like Glassdoor, and then there might be a pre-application process there. You want to ensure that even if that is what's happening, you have an internal application form or a process through which you are able to receive information from the prospective DSP, right? So maybe there are a couple of set questions that somebody has to answer on Glassdoor because you posted this application up there, right? That you posted the job description. Um, pardon me. While that is great, you also want to ensure that you then have an application form that is tailored to your organization, right? What are all the pieces of information or the category of information that you actually need to elicit from these prospective DSPs? Um, that really allows you to keep proper documentation, but that allows you to also track the type of talent that you are recruiting, the type of talent that is responding to the job postings that you are putting out there. And a couple of things that will be included in this application form, right? The very basic things, of course, you will be looking for name, address, you'll be looking for pertinent information that allows you to then proceed into doing your background check, right? You also want to ensure that you see that this person has experience. You want to ensure that there's an area where you are asking about previous work experience. You want to ensure that there's an area where you can follow up. You're asking for information of references so that you can actually follow up on that, right? And then the rest of it, you are free to tailor it. I know sometimes, for example, there are employers who end up having multiple campuses. And so, an application form on it, it might ask a prospective DSP to identify which campus you are applying for, right? Those are some of the things that will become very tailor made to you as a provider. However, standard deck of information that will always need to be received by you. This helps you really track who's applying, how well they're responding, and then also it helps you to be able to assess yourself, right? Is my application clear? Because what if you were advertising for a DSP and then you ended up having a DC respond to that, or the other way around, DCDM, right? So for you as well, having an application in process will allow you to sort of have guardrails in place where you can continue to check if you are actually accurately seeking the right information, right? So, for example, maybe your application form doesn't ask for a driver's license or an ID somewhere, right? And then you realize this is the information that you might need to go and initiate a background check. That might be telling for you to sort of reconsider updating that application form to include that, right? Once you have that, there are a couple of forms that we want to make sure that you are making available to your staff. So we want to, for the purpose of this conversation, we are assuming that you move the person through, you successfully onboard them, or you are offering them the role. Couple of things that you always want to make sure that you are giving. You want to ensure that you are giving a perspective, or this new employee, new hire, a W-4, right? And a W-4 is just an employee's withholding certificate. Do not neglect to give this to somebody, because you can find yourself out of compliance. And all that it is it's asking the employer, the employee, to volunteer or to give up information that information that you will then use as it pertains to reporting for taxes and withholding and reporting for taxes, right? So that's one thing that you want to make sure that you are pardon me, that you are sharing. Please also pay attention. So some of these forms are available, right? These are federal forms that are available off of Google, but try to make sure that you are utilizing the most up to date, right? Right now we're in 2025 and I'm looking at a form that says 2022. If there's a 2025 version, you want to make sure that you are using that, or a 2024 version. You want to make sure that you're using the most up to date form. Generally speaking, the information doesn't change. It might be something here or there, but you always also just want to make sure you are using the most recent of those that are available. And then from there on, there are a couple of other forms. So that W form that will allow you to actually withhold accurately. You absolutely want to make sure before you actually do a lot of move along the process, you are also your employee is filling out an I-9. And all that it is to verify that they have work authorization or the ability to work. Some of these forms are just good to help you as an employer to remain in compliance, right? And the form is very straightforward, very self-explanatory. Somebody needs to present with different types of IDs. Sometimes I think one form of ID is enough. Sometimes it's a combination of two IDs. And so that form is also going to be what you want to ensure is in your employee's file. And then from there on, you want to move into a couple of other things. One of the super important forms that I have seen employers not always have is an emergency contact form, right? You need to have an emergency contact form so that if you are running into an emergency, if something happens on the job, you understand who to contact on behalf of your employee. You understand who to reach out to and say, we've had an emergency, who can respond, right? Absolutely make sure that you are doing that. It doesn't happen often where you might end up having to call a loved one or a relative or a point of contact on behalf of an employee. However, it's still important to be able to have that information available, right? And then there are a couple of other changes that have come in terms to pertaining to employees. I know that there is for the state of Minnesota, we also have a wage notice form, right? It's going to be employee notice from the Department of Labor and Industry, and all that it is it's essentially a summary that communicates to your employee what it is that they are being hired for. It will tell them what it is, the rate that they're being paid. Are they exempt? Are they non-exempt? And then, of course, like, what is the rate of pay? Are they paid hourly? Are they paid? All of that stuff will be on this form, and it's the Minnesota Employee Wage Notice form. This is also available online at Department of Labor and Industry. Some employers might opt not to. It's always a good idea. And on this form as well, it will it will detail the employee's information, and then it will detail your information as an employer, right? The principal place of business, the legal name of the business or legal name of employer, operating name, so on and so forth, right? This is something that, pardon me, this is something that is given to an employee, and it also will communicate just to ensure if there, and then for example things like, are there leave benefits that are available, right? How are they accrued? How do you keep track of that, right? And then it also communicates the first date that somebody will receive, your employee will receive a check. This is information that is really important because, and then the employee and employer signs. This form is important because it communicates your intentions as an employer when you are bringing somebody aboard. You are also communicating that there's an agreement in terms of how much this DSP is going to be making. What are the regularly scheduled hours? What is agreed upon as it relates to the pay days? What is agreed on upon as it relates to benefits or leave, and if that's available, how it's tracked and accrued, right? This is something else, excuse me, that you want to make sure that you are providing for your employee. Remember, this is all addressing the recruitment portion before we get into retention, right? And then from there on, a couple of other forms. There is a form that this is sometimes really pertaining to larger employers. If you do have somebody who is a nursing mother or somebody who is lactating, there are accommodations that you are required to give them. So maybe one of your DSPs comes to work and perhaps they need a break to pump, right? There is the Department of Labor and Industry does have guidance, and that's a form that just basically, pardon me, that's a form that allows your DSP to understand what their rights are as it relates to them being able to take breaks to go and pump, or anything pertaining to the fact that they are lactating employees, right? So you want to ensure that this is something that you are making available to the employee. Sometimes this might sound like it's a lot of information, or it might sound like this is a lot for you as a prospective employer. What this will do is it will create some level of protection for you, right? All of these forms and all of the things, these guardrails that you put in place, will really create a space or an experience that would allow for there to be no misunderstanding between what was said and what was promised and what is being delivered, right? And should there ever be an opportunity where there is misunderstanding pertaining to roles, pertaining to pay, your employee and yourself are aware that you can reference back all of these forms, right? So these are some of the things. And as always, if you are an employer and you do not know where to get all of these things, the Department of Labor and Industry is always a really good place to start. I believe you are able to actually even just Google their number. But if you have questions, you may always reach out and say, these are the things. They also will kind of show you, if you go onto their site, I believe that there's like a bunch of forms, these forms that be able to see that as an employer, these are things that you need, right? Um, excuse me, pardon me, these allergies, and because we are having weather whiplash. And then from there on, the next thing that you want to do for your employees, I believe that the other thing that I think most employers do a great job at is information pertaining to payroll, right? So nowadays we're using mechanized systems. You want to ensure that there is a form that you are giving to your employee that shows that you are seeking their bank account number, routing numbers, and all of that stuff, right? All of this is still part of your onboarding process after successful recruitment. Um, if you're using, say, for example, somebody like ADP is good in that they already have a pre-designed form for you to just print and give to your employees. If not, there's always other forms that you're able to get, and then of course there are hiring partners that you can always go through that might make these forms available to you. If you do not offer, I know that there are a couple of things that have changed both in state and then some counties. Earn sick and safe time is now a thing. You want to ensure that there's a way that your employees understand that they have earned sick and safe time, they have access to that, and of course, part of this onboarding process, you want to ensure that you are communicating with clarity how they're able to either tap into their earned sick and safe time, or if not, how that will be accrued, right? That's something that you want to do. I do know that pertaining to benefits, this conversation was sort of moved along, and then we are waiting to see what happens, perhaps either later on in the year, or maybe subsequent years. But I do know that, for example, there were conversations around uh, opting in, allowing for an option for employees to have like some type of retirement option, right? Um, we are still watching, and please make sure that you are working with an HR partner who can actually help you understand. And so that if this is something that ends up being mandatory, you understand what you need to do. And then also that you understand that your employees will always have options. They can choose to opt out of a lot of things that you offer, right? So I want to say I'm aware that a lot of providers also typically will have an HR partner that they work with. If you don't have an HR partner, please make sure you find one, because this can be a lot for you to track. It can be a lot for you to be able to digest and then have to like orient your employees on it. So when it comes to things like earn sick and save time, if there's an anticipation of changes, these benefits that might have to then be offered. If you offer health insurance, you can that there's a process that you will need someone to facilitate that, an HR partner perhaps. If you don't offer health insurance, there's also a form that you can give to your employees that communicates that this is a job that does not come with that benefit, right? All of these, it's a very good idea for you to have an HR partner. And an HR partner essentially is a certified human resources professional that is going to be able to help you understand to make sense of all of these things, right? What do we mean when we say benefits? How can you offer benefits? How do you accrue benefit? Like, how do you track it? How much is it going to cost you? These are things that an HR partner can be very helpful for you to do. And for most of you that are running payroll through systems like ADP or Paychecks, they will already have options for you to work with an HR partner in there. That's something that you want to tap into. Another thing that a lot of these payroll and or HR systems might offer is a library bank of documents where you are able to go back and read up on like what are they saying about benefits, what are they saying, for example, about health insurance and so on and so forth. What can I ask in my interview process, right? ATP, I know, will actually even give I believe they give you guided some level of guidelines or preset documents that you can personalize during either your interview process and that employee retention. Also, this is not a plug to ADP or Paychecks. I am not getting paid to mention them. These are just some of the systems that I have worked with and I have found helpful. And I'm hoping that you, as a provider and employee, have a good HR system that you are working with an HR partner as well. Um, Moving us along as well in terms of some of the forms that you want to ensure that you have. Excuse me. So we kind of talked about the need to have a job description, the need to have an actual application form, and also, of course, that application form you want to make sure that is always fillable online, so that somebody can actually fill an application form on your website if you have ongoing roles, if you're hiring on a rolling basis, and it's something that somebody can print and maybe come to you if they're coming for an in-person interview or to deliver it in person. Um, Always make sure that there's consideration for someone to do something virtually, right? That can also cut down the waste time and inefficiency time of somebody has to drive across the city just to come and drop an application. And then from there on, you want to make sure that you have some forms that are really pertinent to be able to successfully and legally onboard somebody. have your I-9, make sure that they're filling that W-4 form, right? And then make sure that you are that employee wage notice where you're communicating the intention. Make sure that there are also things that you are communicating. Do you offer health insurance? Do you not? Is there forms that you are allowed or that you are required to give them? The Department of Labor and Industry, again, is a very good place to go and have a look at some of these things that are required, right? Once you have done that, then you would have successfully sort of moved through this recruitment process. Now you want to get to retention, and in the interest of time, I will make sure that I don't take too long. But the bedrock of a successful employee employer relationship, the bedrock of that is always communication, right? At every step, at every turn, you want to ensure that you are communicating, and you are communicating in a way that is clear, it's concise, there's no room for confusion. And also, you want to ensure that you keep open lines of communication. If your DSP doesn't understand something about their role, do they feel empowered? And is there comfort enough or safety enough for them to come back to you and say, hey, I'm not sure about this, right? Then from there on, you want to have standard operating procedures, right? To avoid you or your manager, your hiring manager, or your house manager, whoever's going to be doing this, or your DC or DM, to avoid them having to always repeat the same conversations, you can actually craft standard operating procedures, right? That will let, excuse me, that will let all your employees know of the processes within your campus. And that some of that stuff might include things like what is the shift coverage policy? I talked a little bit about this last week. If you are calling in sick, what is the expectation? If you are calling in, can you call in 4 hours before your shift? If you do call in, let's say 8 hours before your shift, are there two separate forms that somebody fills? What happens when you experience an emergency on the way to work? These are some of the things that you can put in those standard operating procedures to communicate what the process of covering a shift or getting someone or even trading shifts, right? And then you want to have something like a shift detail where your DSP understands that when I show up to work, if you are a campus that requires your employees, so your DSPs to show up in uniform and scrubs, that's perfectly fine. You want to ensure that you are communicating what it is that you are asking of them. Are we saying that show up in scrubs, and is it excuse me, is it going to be scrubs of a specific color? Are they wearing name tags? Are there, what is the policy around hair? Should hair be tied back? All of that stuff. You want to ensure that this is communicated at the very top end of this work relationship, right? Because you don't want someone to come in and you don't address something. Let's say I'll use hair just because I'm wearing my hair down. Um, Perhaps the policy is there's no hair allowed on your face, right? If that's the case, you want to ensure that you are addressing this at the top of the relationship. So I don't show up as a DSP, I'm successfully hired, and then one day I show up with my braids like this and I'm told, oh, this can't be, right? That can create confusion and friction. So anytime this is sort of enshrined in some type of policy, it makes the process a lot easier. Do you observe certain holidays, right? What is the policy around? I'll use this as an example. I know that sometimes there are campuses that do not, absolutely will not allow, for example, pork on site. Um, there are some campuses that will not allow, there might be severe food allergies. They will not allow it at all. It will be like I don't know, I'll use peanuts as an example. Maybe you're a peanut free facility. Maybe you're a completely smoke free facility where I know smoking is not allowed inside, but some folks might say we just want residents that do not smoke altogether. If these are things that you were saying and saying, maybe particularly for residents, of course, that's a different consideration. But if you are saying for your staff, your DSP, you are not allowed to smoke on site, right? These are things that you want to be able to communicate. Um, you want to ensure that you also have a checklist that allows for your DSPs when they come into work. Can they see, do they know what is expected of them, right? Step one is I come in, do I need to sanitize my hands? I'm checking temperature. Some of the considerations that we used to do at the height of COVID now may not be things that are required. Are you still observing that or are you not, right? These are things that you want to absolutely make sure that you are communicating. What is the policy or guideline around your food handling, safety, and what happens to things like leftovers or whatever, right? Medication handling policy, all of these things, you need to have somewhere where you are detailing them because it allows your employees to sort of know ahead of time what is expected of them, and should there ever be something that comes up, they have a reference point, right? They have a reference point. um, all of these things, you can put them into what you might call a standard operating procedure, right? All of these will detail in this particular campus or in this residence, these are the things that we do, this is how we do them, and this is what's expected of you as part of the team. Very, very important. You also really want to make sure that in addition to that, every employee has an employee handbook. Your handbook is going to communicate. You can put in there the history of your organization, but it's really going to put in all the things that are required by law and what you observe, don't observe. What is the policy around workplace harassment? What is the policy around workplace bullying, violence in the workplace? What is the policy around uniform, right? What is the policy around time tracking? Do you use a time tracking system? Is it a paper sheet? When are the cutoff times for these? When do people get hired? When do people get paid? Pardon me. And then also things like Minnesota is an at-will state, right? Where are you communicating these things? So very, very, very important to ensure that you are communicating this information with your employees. If you are able to make accommodations for some of these things, this can be what helps you to have a really successful and a really streamlined process of recruiting employees, DSPs, and then being able to retain them. And then, of course, as you move on along the retention process and the life cycle of the employee, there will come things into consideration such as reviews with your employees and consistent check-ins and so on and so forth. Those are things that can be covered at a later date. I'm going to come up for air and I will hand it over to one of my colleagues who will also talk to you about some of the things, the exciting things that the team is working on. So I think, Temi, you might be ready to come.
Thank you so much, Lauren. There's a whole lot to unpack from today's session, and I'm sure our viewers can feel free to go back and watch so you don't miss any of these important details. So, really quickly, I'm going to be taking you through what EDA offers you as a provider. Whether you're 245D, whether you're an assisted living provider, we're here to support you. All right. So, as a 245D provider or as an assisted living provider out there, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible work you do as a professional. We see that you're the backbone of compassionate care. And also, we see how you ensure that the individuals that come to you for support, we see how you actually give as much support as you should to them. But the question that I have to ask you today is, who supports you? Because let's be honest, running your business and sustaining a care business is no small feat. It's such a big deal. And it's not just about providing quality care. There are a whole lot of branches that you actually need to pay 100% attention to. So you cannot neglect one for one. And we know that it's a lot navigating regulations, as well as staying compliant. While you're doing all these things, you're trying to manage your operations as efficiently as possible. And I know for a fact that while you're at it, you're trying to grow your business. So if this sounds like you, or if this sounds familiar, that's exactly why we are here as an organization. You should never have to navigate these challenges alone. At EDA, Equitable Development Action, our goal is to provide you with the support you need that can help to ease your workload, that can help to improve your business operations, as well as help you thrive in the care landscape, especially seeing that the care landscape is ever evolving. So at EDA, what do we offer you? First of all, we offer free training. This is one of it, and we also have training sessions that are uploaded bi-weekly. They are housed in our training academy. My colleagues will be leaving the details in the comment or on the screen, whichever. And the essence of this free training basically is to help you to stay up to date with compliance, with your quality care and best practices. And the best part of our free training on the academy is the fact that we're constantly improving our resources to ensure that we meet your evolving needs as a provider, especially considering the fact that there are always policy updates and you don't want to miss any of these things. Also, we offer compliance and reporting services. So now let's talk compliance. It's a big deal, and we know how stressful it can be, right? And you don't want to be behind on compliance. You don't want to miss out on any of these regulatory processes. So we can help bring about accurate audit prep and financial or your cost reporting. And this is all done in a bit to ensure that you stay compliant. And this also helps in the long run to improve your operational transparency and efficiency. So we're here to just help you so you don't keep second guessing your activities as it relates to compliance. Also, we can offer you client referral support. I mean, what's a great business without the right clients, right? So we're here to help you as much as possible to grow your client base. And how do we do this? We bring to you proven strategies that will work where you are fully involved so that in the long run you can actually take a hold and take charge of your client base. And also we bring about custom solutions, custom support solutions that can actually bring about results in your business growth. Also, we provide licensing support. So, do you need help with your applications and policies? Do you need help with all these forms? I know that they are a whole lot, and you need to know what form is relevant for what. And how do you do this? So, you can actually come to us. We will be very glad to guide you so that your licensing process is as smooth and stress free as possible. Also, your brand needs to have a very good first impression. I mean, what does it look like if you have quality care, but your brand, the outlook of your business on the social media space does not actually portray what you're able to do? So, this is where we come in to offer websites and branding services. So, do you need like your logo design? Do you need business cards? Maybe websites development or some marketing materials just for you to have a professional and appealing brand identity. We are going to be your go-to for this service. Okay, lastly, we offer virtual assistants and executive support. So for a fact, the administrative workload can be very overwhelming, right? And you don't have to carry it all by yourself. So this is where we can offer you support by offering virtual assistant services. So we take off the paperwork so you can prioritize quality care, right? So we can handle your scheduling, your communication management, maybe your correspondences, data entry, and just overall executive support. So this is what EDA has brought to your doorstep. Now, the best part is this: we can offer you free 30-minute consultation, and now this will be your chance to share your challenges with us. You can come with your concerns. What are those things that you need to say? What are those things that are challenging your business but you don't really know how to explain, or you can't get to the root of the matter? So with our team of experts, we're able to help you to figure out what the actual challenges might be. It could be possible that you're just dealing with symptoms and not exactly the root cause. So we can actually come in to actually be able to delve into the real issues and figure out the best solutions that we are going to tailor specifically for those challenges. All right. And finally, so are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you just starting, or do you want to take your business to the next level? So don't wait. Reach out to us. You can book that consultation. You can reach out to us at provider support at edact.org. So we are so glad and we're excited to get started with you on making your work easier, on making your work more efficient, and ensuring that you have a more impactful business. Once again, you're doing amazing work. And I asked you in the beginning, who is supporting you? So EDA is here to actually support you every step of the way. So it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to hand this over back to Lauren. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy, for sharing that incredible nugget of information. I think once again, I really love how Temi phrased it. Who is supporting you, right? Really, part of what we want to continue to stress is that this journey of you being a provider does not have to be an isolated and lonely one. It will be difficult, yes, but absolutely for you to know that there are people out there who will support the work that you do. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. And of course, at any point, if you have questions, please always feel free to reach out. I believe that the information, contact information was displayed before, but maybe we can sort of put that up there again before we go off. I believe it's support at edact.org. There we go. It is also provider support. There we go. Provider support at edact.org. Let us know if you have questions, comments. And of course, the goal of this conversation and the evolving conversations, right, is just to be able to share nuggets of wisdom in a way that it can hopefully help you or help the next provider. So, just a very brief recap, today's conversation was really about. The technical aspect of hiring, recruiting, and retaining employees, right? Starting right with that application. The job description, the application is super important, and making sure that your application is tailored to your organization. For example, you might have multiple campuses and you ask that question on your application form, right? And then wanting to make sure that you have state and federal forms that bring you into compliance with labor laws. And then of course you want to ensure that you are sharing employee notices in a way that your employees have access to information pertaining to their experience while being employed by you. The really important reason why we stress these is because it brings you into compliance, right? You never want the state or the federal government to come after you and say you are out of compliance, or for an employee to feel like, oh, you're just sort of running a backyard show, right? And then we moved a little bit into talking about like an SOP, standard operating procedure form. If you have that type of document, that is where you're going to communicate all of your processes. That's where you're going to communicate a lot of what you expect, and how you expect the job to be done, both by individuals and teams. You will also address things like how residents will be responded to, right? And so, like, an SOP is a very important document. If you are wondering, you're sitting as a provider, you see this and you're wondering, well, what are all these things that these people are talking about, right? Lauren is just saying some gibberish. What is an SOP? Please feel free to reach out to us. And maybe you don't have SOPs. Maybe you don't have an application process, that a form that is tailored to your organization. Maybe you don't have processes and forms, for example, a shift detail, shift coverage, like all of these policies. Maybe you don't have a handbook. If you just want to even ask questions about it, please feel free to reach out to us. We will help you navigate that. And if we cannot solve the problem, the guarantee is we will absolutely put you in touch with a resource that can help solve your problem. And with that, folks, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Stay warm. We are experiencing really terrible weather whiplash, but these days will end as well. The cold days are not going to last for long. So, with that, please have a great day, and we will see you again next week, Thursday, I believe, same time and same place. Have a good one.